Hello, welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. Hello, everyone. I'm here joined with Susan.
Hello.
Hi. We are doing part 3 of our series on AI, but taking it seriously this time.
Wait a minute.
AI, but for real.
But is that the series or that's this episode?
That's the series.
The series is AI, but for real,
What did
as
I
opposed to
call
what? AI to do silly cat pictures. I'm not sure what AI, but for real is. Is that really what we're calling it? I guess I should have known that if we're already at number 3.
Taking AI seriously, part 3. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah, taking
Okay.
AI seriously, part 3.
Okay.
There's a couple things that we need to address
Okay.
as we jump in.
Yeah.
So thing one is that as people may recall, this is part of a series. We had 5 steps on the stairs.
Yeah.
Step 1 was stupid entertainment, frivolous uses of AI, avatars, random experiences generators, painting yourself, just sort of, fun, frivolous stuff.
Yeah.
But then when the frivolous stuff, when the quality of something gets good enough,
Yeah.
people realize that they can actually use it in a production capacity,
Yeah.
and it starts to leak into the next
level up.
level up. So that was one. The next, the step above number 1 is what we talked about last episode, which was a little hard. I think we struggled with that one, and I think we'll be able to be more concrete with step 3 because it's a little more. We can sink our teeth into it. Step 2 is sort of super high end task automation.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily doing work product in the way that an expert would do work product. It's doing more, you want to call it menial or routine, repetitive stuff that you didn't need your PhD, or not even a PhD, that you didn't need your bachelor's degree to to do, like posting. But not to say that you wouldn't need a degree for that role, but those aspects.
This part of that role that was just kind of mundane and routine.
Yeah. So we're talking about presentations. We're talking about posting on social media, filling out spreadsheets, repetition stuff that maybe in like a Mad Men world of 1961 would be done by a secretary.
By people,
right. You'd have a bunch of secretaries working for, so one guy who would drive the work product. And so so that was step 2.
Yeah.
And now we're moving into step 3. So step 3 is AI doing stuff that experts used to do, or experts / highly trained people. Doesn't mean necessarily academic experts. We can talk about that. Well, I guess I'll give you an example. Obviously, there's academic experts like you or I, people who are senior in UX or coding or whatever it is. Yeah, but you could also this is also going to be in other areas. So, for example, you could be an expert machinist at a shop, someone who is who's highly trained at welding.
Yeah.
For example, and there's before there was maybe automation where you could automate some welds here or there. But you could be getting to a place where you'd have a robot that is using AI with a camera, right? You're not limited to the production line. You could be more flexible. You can have it be doing advanced welding, not necessarily on like a set routine. Right. So wherever kind of you sort of have a highly skilled thing, it's sort of could be done by AI. But step 3 is the expert is still involved.
So
right?
would this include like the AI is scanning the X-rays, but there's also the radiologist
I think
just
that's a fantastic example.
looking
Yes.
at what the AI said.
Yeah. There's the MRI that the doctors are using to to help do the diagnosis.
Right.
It's sort of beyond the basic menial,
Yeah.
uh, and that's maybe like a step 2.5 in a medical sense, right? So it's like, I don't know enough about doctor stuff. Looking at an MRI, is that one of the boring things that's high end to task automation, or is that like
No,
skilled, trained
that's
thing?
skilled.
So it sounds like that's kind of moving into right, but
Yeah.
that's what I say, right? When you get really good at the step 2, you kind of start to push into step 3.
Yep.
And then step like 3.5 would be, not only does it maybe look at the thing and give suggestions to the doctors, but also might recommend treatment and might recommend, next steps, and, starting to do some of the other things that a highly trained professional would do. But the professional is still there to run it, to oversee it, to,
Right.
you know, uh, I guess if you're thinking of it in job roles, right? We've moved from it being sort of an administrator or a secretary
Right.
in step 2 to step 3 is going to be like a junior colleague,
Yeah.
right? So like it's like a brand new doctor.
Yeah.
Like you still need the senior or brand new person in UX, right? They're trained, they can do the job, they can do it all, but you still need the senior person there to guide and make sure there's no
Yeah.
mistakes and work through, problems and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So maybe that's a good way to think of step 3 is
Mhm.
is a replacement of a junior in the field.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's where we're going to be talking about today.
Okay.
We have a couple couple things to address before we dive into that.
Okay.
We are trying to avoid all the pitfalls. If you do remember all the pitfalls that we were trying to avoid.
No. I
Oh,
guess I
okay.
fell into them already. What are the pitfalls we're trying to avoid?
Some of the cliche AI stuff that you would
Like
do on a
what?
podcast because we're taking it seriously. So
Okay.
it's like, oh, the AI, like, will it end humanity?
Okay.
Or AI, well, it's not good right now, so therefore it's useless.
Okay. All
Right.
right.
So we were trying to avoid some of the
I'll
sort of
try and avoid those
common
pitfalls.
pitfalls to talk about it in a more concrete and productive
Okay.
way. We're taking it seriously and
Okay.
not taking it not just talking about it just to
Talking
talk
about the
about
end of
it
the
because it's
world is
interesting.
pretty serious, but okay.
Well, so no, that's my point. As we start moving up the
I
ladder,
know. I know.
right?
It gets more
We're
serious.
you have to start talking about some of the externalities, some
Yes.
of you kind of have to start talking about some of
Yeah.
these other effects
Yep.
because they kind of start to become important if you
Yep.
get to this step.
Got it.
So I don't want to do like a whole thing on like the philosophy of what it
Right.
means to be a human or that.
Okay.
I'm trying to avoid
All right.
that,
I'm glad to avoid that.
but we do have to talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
So our focus will be on what's most likely to happen, not
Okay.
necessarily the externality risks, which we acknowledge are significant and
Yeah.
possible, but just sort of on that, the fat part of the curve.
Got it.
If we're taking it seriously, then what? So I we should start with some backgroundy other things about the industry of AI. I have
Okay.
because we actually have notes today, unlike normal, where we just shooting from the hip.
Wing it.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about the industry? Or do you want to talk about Figma first?
Whatever you want to do.
No. You got to pick.
Fig-
I've been talking for forever here.
Figma.
Okay, let's talk about Figma. we we sort of know people who we know Adobe people, we know Figma people.
Maybe we should explain what Figma is in case somebody listening doesn't
Yes.
know.
How about you? Would you like to
I mean, I
do
think
it?
a lot of people listening will know what Figma is, but maybe not everyone. Figma is a design tool used by UX and UI designers to create, to do a lot of stuff, but primarily to create prototypes of software and apps. You design the prototype; they're very interactive. It's a whole ecosystem where you can share your designs and people can comment on the designs and so on, and run interactive prototypes and so on. So there have been over the years different tools that have been the tool of the decade or the year for these things. There was Axure, there was Sketch, there was Adobe XD. Figma is kind of the
Tool du jour.
tool that's used probably by not by everyone, but by most designers who are doing this. So that's what Figma is.
It has been our, I mean, you can tell me if I'm speaking out of turn. It has been our belief that one of the, I don't want to say genius parts of Figma, we'll just say one of the goals of Figma was grabbing a slice of the development budget pie. Because the UX budget, as everyone who's in UX knows, is always teensy tiny. It's a little tiny little speck. And the development engineering budgets in a lot of companies are just this like vast, enormous, you know, um, in comparison, amount, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I think that Figma solved or helped solve or hit the reason or maybe the reasons for its popularity is it brought UX one step closer to development. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, there used to be this great thing called waterfall, which was fantastic.
Well, okay. You don't want to go there.
Like I could, there were people driving in their cars who just swerved off the road, throwing. Someone just smashed a bowl they were
Yeah,
washing.
you do not want to go there. Not with me.
That's one of my favorite zags. Do you know about zag takes?
No.
So everyone always has you know what like a take is, right? Like a hot
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone always has the take, but in the media industry, of which we're not really in the industry, but right, we're doing a podcast, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
It can often be productive to have a contrarian position.
Yes.
This is known as a zag take,
Oh, well,
right?
then I must
So
be a master of zag takes.
I don't know. I feel like you take
Oh,
a number. I don't think your positions are necessarily they're
I'm
not contrarian enough. Sometimes you just have to take the zag just like you maybe have a good reason, but like okay,
I
for
think
example,
my
you
position.
don't really like agile and
Yeah,
UX.
I was gonna
But
say
that's
my
I think that's pretty common. I
oh
don't think
god,
that's like,
no.
whoa.
No, I think my position on waterfall would be a zag take.
So anyways, what's something that's really popular? Can you just like name something very popular? Not
No,
like a person, but like a policy or a
probably not.
this is improv, right? You're supposed to yes and you just know butted me.
What's popular?
Yeah, like an opinion that's popular.
An opinion. Like what kind of opinion?
Any opinion. I'm just asking for an example.
Collaboration.
Okay, yeah, that's good, right? So everyone is saying, "Hey, we need more collaboration, more
Yeah.
collaboration." A zag take would be actually We should
Collaboration is
put up
bad.
more barriers. Collaboration is bad. But
Okay.
then you can back it up, right? Like, you're more creative when you're just off by your own and you can be left to work independently and there's too many meetings. Like, you can
Right.
you
Less
can
distraction,
you
more
can justify
focus.
it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of a zag take.
Okay.
You're serious, but like, I mean, you recognize that there's a little bit of like silly. Not, I mean, it's silliness, but like you're kind of ribbing, and that's what makes a zag take good.
Okay.
Where like it's serious, but like,
Well, I
so you have to
appreciate
take
you
it seriously,
explaining
but
this. So now I have learned something new
yeah.
about zag takes.
Anyway, so my zag take is that waterfall is actually great.
I think waterfall
Yeah,
is
I know,
great.
I know you do, I know you do. So I think I've always said that like I can't wait for like in another 10 years.
And
Pe
waterfall comes
Well,
back.
people will go, it'll like be like after agile is no longer cool, agile becomes like the synergy. Synergy used to be great and then became like a meme and people made fun of it. So like eventually that'll happen to agile. And
Yeah.
then there'll be this new thing that's really popular that's called like wall tossing or
Yeah.
stair stepping, or like it'll be some sort of thing where it's like you have a thing and then you just hand it
To
to
the
to the
next
next to the
piece.
next piece, right? And it'll be like this. It'll become like this really hot new way of doing stuff, and we'll just kind of go back to waterfall.
I wish.
For people who don't know, can you do water? Can you define waterfall? If you had to define Figma, you have to define waterfall
Okay.
in like two
When
sentences.
okay, 2 sentences,
Well,
no, maybe
three. I
more
mean,
than
you should just be short about it.
well, no, I'll do it as quick as I can. The
That's
most common, uh, philosophy and methodology for software development right now in the world is agile. It has its own things and philosophies and rules. But before that, there was what was called the waterfall method, which used to be a term of respect and is now a term of derision. And the idea of waterfall is that when you're designing a product, when you're designing software, you go through different phases and you want to make sure you complete a phase before you move on to the next phase. So
like
you
water running
water
down
going down
doesn't go back up.
doesn't go back up, it goes down. So you would analyze the situation and come up with requirements and then document the requirements, and then you would do your system architecture, and then you would do your interface architecture, and then you would do the programming and the coding, and then you would do the testing, and things would just go in this stair step manner, and you'd make sure you completed the step before you continued on. And when you were all done, you would ship your product. So that's what waterfall is. All right,
Yeah.
why did you bring this up?
I brought it up because sometimes you just have to take like a zag take, right?
Yes.
So sometimes it's worth being contrarian in that
Okay.
capacity.
Okay.
Anyways, we were talking about Figma,
Figma.
and so so you can say waterfall's good, you can say waterfall's bad, but there is a truth that at some point in many organizations, the UX team, the design team, they've made their designs and then they hand it off to engineering
Hmm.
who has to make it
Make it.
happen.
Yes.
And what Figma helped with is it it's sort of a translation layer
Yeah.
that helps bring both sides a little closer. It
Right.
helps the design team be a little closer to the code,
Yeah.
and it helps the coders be a little closer to the design team.
Yeah, because it used to be, even though we supposedly weren't in waterfall, it used to be that the prototype would get handed over to the developers, and hopefully it made sense to them, and hopefully you documented it so they would understand what you meant. But there was this translation layer that often didn't go well.
I mean, you can just imagine, let's take it in its basic form, right? you have a pen and paper wire frame sketch,
Yeah.
right? And you're handing it to a developer who has to code stuff,
Right.
right? Like at some
And there's
place,
going to be lots of questions. Well, wait a minute. Does everything show up at one time? What happens if they do this? What happens if they do that?
yeah, or what images are going in there?
What's the state if they press that button? Then what
Does when yeah
shows?
yeah
And
yeah 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 exactly
there's just a
exactly
lot that you wouldn't know.
yeah.
And hmm
What happens if you refresh the page?
yeah,
All this stuff. So yeah, what Figma does, and they didn't invent this, but the, I think they did a good job. They probably did the best job making life easier for developers to grab the prototypes and spin it up into live production fast. Because right now,
yeah,
speed is sort of everything with Agile.
yeah.
And on the flip side, it allowed I don't know. No, there really is no flip side. Well, okay. It allowed designers to create prototypes that were closer to the code in the way that the developers wanted them.
Well, in the way that the designers wanted them. So less likely that
There's
when
probably benefits to the designers
less
too. Yeah.
likely that when
Yeah.
the developer gets it, then all of a sudden a lot of changes are made, which still happens.
True. It's much easier to make good prototypes to share to stakeholders so that you can get buy-in. Be like, this
Yeah,
is what it's gonna look like,
going to look and act like, yep,
right?
yep,
Versus you hand them sort of like like a pen and paper wire
right,
frame sketch.
right,
They can see it
or
live.
static images.
And so part of this has been the proliferation of the. Now, this is a term of derision.
What?
Sort of Figma automatons, prototype
Figma monkeys.
junkies. Yeah, So there's sort of like a, we sort of think, right or wrong, that in Agile it's like a giant wood stove, and it needs fuel, or like the coal of a rail car or something,
Yeah,
and you need to feed it,
yeah,
and so it just constantly needs to be fed just to keep roaring forward. And what does it need to get fed? It needs to get fed Figma prototypes.
right,
You just need to shovel like coal into a steam engine,
right.
shovel Figma
The Figma
prototypes
project
to the dev team as fast and as rapidly as possible so that
for
they
the
can
dreaded features, which is a
so
whole
so that
nother
yeah,
thing
yeah,
I
so
don't
they
want
can
to
just
get
keep
into.
plowing, keep the
Creating
train
features. Yep.
going at full tilt.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is no doubt that in this world there is a place for automation slash AI.
Yeah.
It is generally repeatable. You have a lot of things that are kind of the same, but a
Same.
little different
Little
in interesting
different, but I
ways.
mean, you have a button, you have a
There
list, you
are,
have a
yeah, there's a lot
screen
of pages that are kind of like all the other pages.
on purpose, so you have
It's
consistency.
it's close to code, and that's something that AI generally traditionally has done pretty well at.
Yep.
If you ask AI to, write a code for this, it's kind of more advanced than if you ask AI to like, well, just for an example, fix my leaky faucet,
Right.
right? Like that's a task it can't really do. But like if you ask it to like, make a
Write the
Python
code for
script
it.
to,
Right. You can
generate,
do that.
100 random numbers or whatever, it's pretty good at that.
Mhm.
And maybe that's just because it's the developers made it, right? Like if the
Mhm.
plumbers had made AI, maybe it would be really good at,
Fixing the
snaking
leaky faucet. Yeah.
snaking toilets or whatever. But um, so I bring this all up because recently, Figma made an announcement. Now, this is where we're running into our pitfalls, right? We're trying not to think about today as it is today because it is going to
It's gonna change.
change, right? But I bring it up because after we started, we didn't do this before. After we started the AI series, um, Figma announced this new sort of AI stuff um, and it's just a whisper. I think they're calling it uh, AI site generator,
Site creator.
site creator, um,
Or something like that.
something like that. It doesn't really matter because um, we, yeah. Oh, okay. There we go. Dora AI. It doesn't really matter what it is because that we all know what they're trying to accomplish.
What are they trying to accomplish?
Um, yes, yes. So Wong on Threads says Figma is working on Figma sites. Design responsively, use pre-built blocks, add preset interactions, then launch with a click. So,
So this is this though. Can I ask you a question? Because this is really. It sounds to me, and I looked at it briefly. It sounds to me when you read that description that this is bringing AI not to the UX part, but to the development part.
well,
The
and
UX
of course, that's
designer
where the money is.
designs it and pushes the button, and then it creates the code and the website and the app and whatever it is, and no no programmer touched it.
Well, and this is where we're getting to.
Or I guess the developer could become the designer, and you could X out the UX
Well,
or
this is why I think it's step 3. More than likely, it's that in the near future, there's a Figma prototype,
yeah,
and you can press a button and it'll make kind of live code,
yeah,
and then you'll still the expert developer will still be involved
to
to
tweak and
tweak
fix
it
and
and make sure that the right APIs are in there and make sure that it's running the right, types of code and making it a little
right.
more
And Figma,
load faster and all that
I'm
stuff.
assuming Figma will not be the only tool doing this.
Right.
And
But they've been trying to bridge that gap for forever, and it's sort of like, how like um, Steve Jobs, what he wanted like the smart touch things from Star Trek.
yeah,
And so that was like the vision.
yeah,
And so, but he had to do the iPhone first because it wasn't good enough to make like the bigger like
yeah,
tablet thing. But like that was where it was going to go.
yeah,
I think Figma is the same way. We've been talking about it for a little bit. The goal has always been to create the bridge between development and design, where you can walk from one end of the bridge to the other and back. So if you are on the design side of the bridge, you could whip a design up and press a button and it creates the code on the back end and you have a live site.
But I have a question for you.
Or you could start on the development end, create some of the code and press a button and it makes it pretty and gives you like a aesthetically pleasing design. And
Really?
they're that sort of
Is
bridge.
Figma going to do both sides?
I think that's what they want to do. I think they want to do both sides.
I don't. All right. I mean, do we get to make predictions?
Sure. Well, no, and I'll just add one more caveat. They're in a weird place because they were going to merge with Adobe, and
I
this was
know.
Adobe's big thing,
And
but
then
then
they didn't.
antitrust and that got canceled, and so
Right.
now Figma they got $20 billion or whatever because it fell apart, or I forget
Right.
exactly, 1 billion, whatever the terms were. So on that, blah, 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 and then they're going to launch an IPO so that they're going to be a public company.
Right.
So
Right.
they're in sort of a weird
Right.
spot.
Because what I was going to say is, I don't. I definitely think this whole thing you're describing is going to happen very soon. I don't think Figma is going to come out as the leader in it
Okay, that's a good hot take. I appreciate that take. That's good.
for various reasons. But somebody will. I don't know who will. I'm
Someone is going to get there. If it's not Figma,
someone's going to get there probably very fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but this is an interesting situation.
Sure. I mean, I have more thoughts, but I want to hear your thoughts if you haven't. But I don't,
Well, I don't know. I think my thoughts probably start to veer towards step 4.
Right. So again,
So
step 4 is
I'm
industry
I'm
replacement.
hesitant to bring them up. But I think there's
Well, no, you can, right? With step 3 starts to leak into step 4. We should
but
leave the industry
I think
replacement for later.
there's a lot. So I have questions about other examples of step 3, if they are examples of step 3. Can I ask you my questions?
Ask one question. We'll see if it ties into the next place I want to go.
Well, I think for another example of step 3, I think that impacts the world we're in of user experience would be using AI to at least analyze your UX research data, maybe even to collect your UX research data. Is that another example?
Um, yes, but let's put a pause on that.
Okay.
Because I want to do that. I want to do that next.
Okay.
Because yes, the meat and potatoes of this episode probably. I mean, these other things are interesting, but the meat and potatoes is going to be, okay, what is exactly step 3? How are experts going to be using AI?
Yeah.
Again, not what it's capable of now. What it's going to be capable.
Well,
What step 3 looks like soon. And
yeah.
there's no doubt that deep research, all that kind of stuff, first drafts, you know, uh, 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 the example I gave before we got on live on air was, if you're a UX researcher, hey, here's the PowerPoint that's a summary of the project, and here's the goals of it. Come up with a 45-minute protocol for doing the user research for me.
Yeah. Or here's the videos of the interviews.
Transcribe them and grab the
Not just
insights.
transcribe them,
Yeah,
but
and grab the insights.
what are the insights?
Right. Yeah.
What's the conclusions from it?
Yeah.
Or
So, yeah,
okay, wait,
that's a good
well,
one.
all right. So veering into step 4,
Well, no,
make
no, 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 no.
make the
Let's
protocol and do the interviews.
right, right, right. So that's always a thing. Once it gets good enough, then you move into the next step. So
Yeah. Okay. We'll stay at 3.
we might
We'll
have to do
stay at
2
3.
episodes on step 4. Let's do 2 episodes on step 4. Sounds like, but we're staying in step
All right,
3.
we're
We're
staying at
doing
step
step by step.
3. Yeah.
So before we jump into that, I
Yeah.
do just want to talk briefly about the industry, since we were talking about Figma,
Yeah.
and the industry of developing these AI tools.
Yeah.
There's also someone wrote in with a question, so I'm glad. I was going to talk about it anyways, but I'm glad I get to also answer a user question.
Okay.
So part of the reason, and you said this before we got on, it feels sort of inevitable that we've already blown past step 1.
Yep.
This is in April 2025 when we're recording this. I feel like we've started in step 2.
For sure.
There will probably be some things that jump into step 3. It's not like suddenly we're all in step 3, but it sort of depends on the industry and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. For example, we look at industry replacement. If you were someone who made funny little avatars,
Right. Then
you're
you're
right. Your
already in
industry's kind of
industry
done,
replacement. Right.
right? So,
Right.
right. Like,
It
so it just
depends.
depends on
Yes.
the industry that you're in.
Right.
Some
At
industries,
what step are you actually
yeah,
wiped out? Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, and part of it is this idea of profit. One of the and again, this is a pitfall. I'm acknowledging it's a pitfall, but I think it's important that we talk about it. When a lot of people talk about people who are in the AI industry, they often talk about how great it's going to be, right? And they try to give the rosy picture. And they say, well, worker productivity will go up 30%, right? So everyone will be better off. Even if there's some industry disruption, society will have so much more productivity that will afford governments to step in and do like a universal income, or we can pay off all the debt, or people will have a better life experience for cheaper, or it'll unlock all this stuff, right? As an economist, that's not going to happen. In my personal opinion, that's just not how it works. We don't have a very egalitarian system, especially in the United States, in a lot of ways. And what makes AI so unique is, unlike, say, let's talk about other really big jumps, technological jumps. The internet, kind of. But let's go back. Vaccines. Okay. If you were the maker of vaccines, sure, you had the capacity to make a lot of money. If you like solved polio, right? But what it really did was you eliminated all these kids who would be like disabled for their entire life. So you've unlocked a whole bunch of people to now be more productive in society.
Okay.
So
where you're going with this.
Okay. And so if we took a look at these like huge jumps in human whatever,
Yeah.
some of them have the societal lifting effect.
Yeah.
Some of them have a lifting effect, but it's really rocky to begin with. I think the printing press would definitely be one of those. It lifted society up, and we are all more wealthy because of it, of the printing press. But it did take like 300 years of like turmoil and, storm and drag. Again, as I like to remind people, there's a thing called the 100 Years' War that happened right after the printing press.
Right.
You don't want a thing called 100 Years' War. That's probably not a fun time to be living through.
Right. Right.
Okay. So what AI does is it has a really unique ability to consolidate on one hand. And I'm going to get to the other hand, which is like the contrarian position. I'm going to argue against myself, which is like a stupid thing to do on a podcast, but I'm going to do it anyways. So on one hand, it has the capacity to be incredibly to concentrate the benefits. So if you look at like, hey, what's the market? Well, like, oh, what's a big market? If we're a market disruptor, right? Some people like development, way bigger than UX. If you disrupt the UX market, it's a little bit. If you disrupt the development market, it's huge. Or aviation, right? People spend a lot of money on planes. So there's a bigger, even if you have a smaller part, if it's a big pie, you can get rich. The thing about AI is that it's like, what if the market was all salaries? Right? Like, instead of like, if I employ 100 people,
right,
and let's just say I'm paying each person $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
If I take 10 of those people, right?
Yeah.
And I don't employ them, and I AI-ify them.
Yeah.
It's $1 million.
Right.
And if I give that to an AI company, like a open AI, right? Give me the productivity of 10 workers, and then I don't have to pay the workers.
Right.
People aren't necessarily getting richer because of that. Like, the 90 people can now do the work of, we'll just say, like 105 people.
Yeah.
But the only people who are really getting the benefit is probably the company that's going to spend less money on employees, and the AI people
that get paid something,
that get
for
the
the tool.
money that would have gone towards employees. In the same way that, we talked about the last episode, we could hire an assistant, right? There's a cost benefit trade-off. And at level 2, that trade-off is still there,
Yeah.
right? Like we could have AI and hire an assistant.
Right.
Once you start getting to level 3,
Right.
hiring an assistant becomes fiscally less, it makes less and less sense,
Yeah.
right? Like if my AI can do the stuff of a junior person in my field,
Right.
why would I spend the
Hire the
money
junior
to
person.
hire the
Yep.
junior person?
Yep.
It's expensive to recruit.
Yep.
Health insurance benefits are
You got to train
expensive.
them.
You got to train them. They
Then
could
they
leave,
leave.
you know. Um,
So, all
they
right.
make
So what
they
is
make mis- they,
so
the first couple years are
they
probably not
make
very productive, right? As
so
you get
so
used to the
what's your
industry.
what so wait a minute. What is your point here? Where are you going with this?
So you had talked earlier about feeling like it was inevitable. And part of the reason that you feel that way is because the profit scale
Yeah, it's so
on
large.
this is so large.
Right.
And part of the reason that I think, we don't want to talk too much about it, about, I think AI happens to be a double whammy in as far as societal disruption. Because on one hand, it's very disruptive. And on the other hand, no, and on the same hand. And at the same time, it's very good at concentrating capital,
Mm.
concentrating the benefit,
Mm.
you know? Like if there's an AI that can help me do my job, like make me twice as productive,
Yeah.
my company, not you because you're benevolent, but if I worked at like a 98% of the soulless companies out there, they're not going to pay me and then give me an AI to make me 80% more productive.
They're
They're
just
going
going
to
to do.
fire me and have an AI that can do 95% of what I was doing
All right.
for half the
Okay,
price.
but I have a question for you.
Yes.
How similar or different do you think this transition is or is going to be? We've had other transitions. I mean, you mentioned the printing press, but in more recent times, the the computerization of things, right? And I'm old enough to have lived. I went through that transition. I was in the workplace before computers were in the workplace. Period. Like not even large mainframe. There just weren't any computers. And then the computers came in, and then everyone had a computer. And I also was in the workplace when we went through the internet transition. So I lived through two pretty significant tech transitions that affected people in workplace. How different do you think AI is going to be? Yep, it's another one. Here we are again. It's another one, and we're going to see changes. Or do you think this is because of what it is going to be different than those transitions? Because those transitions were big and they had a big impact and they had an impact on people's jobs and so on. Do you
I
think
th-
this is different?
I think it is. I think this is one of the AI conversation pitfalls. To
Oh,
be honestly,
so I
no,
shouldn't
no,
have.
no. You can ask the
I
question.
shouldn't
'Cause-
have. I shouldn't
No,
have
no. We're
jumped
doing we're
in.
doing we're doing our pitfall segment. But I think the only answer is we don't know. It's too early to know. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know. I mean, right now there hasn't been much of a backlash. There will be at some point, and I don't know what that looks like, or if there's a middle ground where they can thread the needle, or like So again, this whole series, right? We're taking AI seriously. We're not going to chide it. We're not going to say that it's not going to get good. We also don't think that like tomorrow God, we've created God, but there's a lot of risks to a lot of industries, and it's probably going to go pretty fast. That said, there's also a lot of demand. I think if you talk to most people in the workforce, they feel like they're overworked. So there does seem to be, I mean, let's just talk about UX, and I'm sorry I'm giving you a non answer.
It's all right. I just One
if
give and
you
take from
if
it.
you have an AI agents that help you do UX research, I'm not I mean, I think most organizations could probably easily do double or triple or 10x the amount of research that they're currently doing. If it didn't cost them any more, there's an advantage to just
Mm,
having more resources to do more research.
mhm,
So at first it's sort of like parched earth, right? Dry dirt. It can absorb. There's a lot that can be absorbed. Or look at development, right? There's all these apps that are buggy and they're inefficient and they're not designed
mm,
well and they don't go back and like if you suddenly were able to double all the company's development budgets, I think they would use it. I think
mm,
there's a lot of different stuff. There's like, yeah, now we can go back and make things higher quality or develop new products or
mm.
like I do think that there's a lot of there's a lot of again that sort of dry ground that can soak up a lot more
All
if
right,
more
let me
stuff is
ask you a
generated.
different question. And I'm
So, well,
sorry.
no. That's to wrap up. Too early to say.
Okay,
I can't ask. I don't feel like I can give you a real answer.
okay. Here's another one you may not be able to
No,
answer.
hit me.
So you were talking about the Figma thing, and the tools are gonna you can design, you can do a design, and then the AI does the code, or you can do the code and the AI makes it look nice. Um, so do you have a sense of which which one is which way is it more likely to go? Uh,
You would have to imagine that it goes the way of the developers. There,
you mean
it's like us. It's like the planet and a moon,
wait a minute.
right?
So what do you mean it goes the way of the developers?
If you're a moon
That the
orbiting
developers
Jupiter,
use it to say we can do our own UX design now. That's what you're saying?
it's a
Is that
great
what you
question.
meant?
That's a great question. You would. It's so weird because on one hand, I do feel like developers run the show,
Yeah.
and on the other hand, I feel like development AI is in some ways
It's so
the most
easy to take
existential
over
threat to
that.
development.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they are the ones.
They are the ones that are
It's like the
in
spotlight is
serious
on them.
trouble. Right.
Sometimes
Right.
you see this with like political candidates
Yeah.
where whether it's good news or bad news, like whoever has the spotlight is on one of the candidates, and that's
Right.
probably usually a bad thing,
Not a good thing.
not a good thing.
Right.
So it's sort of like even if it's good news, sometimes that's just like you just sometimes it's just better for news to not be about you. And so with developers, it kind of feels like they're the focus, and so they're going to get all the productivity, and everything will be catered towards them, and also that
The
it
other
means like
idea
they're
is that wait a minute.
everything's
Well, okay,
whereas
yeah.
UX might slide under the radar a little bit. I think I mean it could also just go in both directions. We're sliding into 4, right, which is that industry replacement. But I do let's think of the development process. Someone's coming up
The waterfall development.
I wish so. Someone's coming up with product ideas. Maybe
Yes.
it's based on research, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
They say, "Hey, here are the features. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the
Yeah.
initiative. This is what we need."
Yeah.
They throw it. Some people think about some parameters about whatever priorities or what we can do or the technology that is possible, and then it gets thrown to some sort of design, and that can be UX, that could be some other kind of design, and they come up with some sort of prototype, and then that gets sent to development.
Yeah.
I do feel like there might be a squeezing. Right now, the people who are high fidelity, we talk about low fidelity, low to mid fidelity
Yeah.
UX design, and then high fidelity design. So low fidelity is going to be your traditional UX design. It's going to be a lot closer to problem solving, and high fidelity is what color is the button,
Right.
where does this go, what's that the interaction design, visual design element, what's the font face.
Yeah.
I do feel because they're closer to development,
Yeah.
that has been where the growth a big chunk of growth in UX has been.
Yeah.
And I do worry that they are the ones who are going to get squeezed.
Yeah. I mean, to be, if you
Like,
know,
yeah,
I try not to do this, but what happens to me so easily is I just go right to, oh, well, the product people are going to think up the product and press the button. And so there's not going to be UX
right?
and there's not going to be developers. There's just going to be the product people.
Well, again, that's 4 industry
That's
replacement.
4, and
But
I'll be quiet. Stick with 3.
if we stick with 3, I do think that there is a world where you need an expert. And
Yep.
a lot of
Mhm.
the of a lot of like the again shoveling those Figma prototypes, it's often UX experts. If you have like a PhD in UX, a master's in HCI,
Yeah.
they're often on the lower end.
Yeah.
They're the lower end of the fidelity. They're doing
Yeah.
more user testing. They're doing more problem solving. They're doing
Right.
flows like that kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
And so I think in a step 3, I guess if you're asking for my opinion, step 3 is it's sort of going to be like the product people, here's the design. You give it to the solutioners who are, I guess,
Yeah.
the UXC design like stuff,
Yeah.
and they put a
And they
little
put it
bit of
in,
outline on it,
and
like
then it goes into
they
the
should go
AI.
here and they should go there and they should go here.
Yeah.
And then
I
you
agree.
press the button in Figma and it basically creates a lot of the code. And this is where I think design systems are going to be so huge. We have been waiting for design systems to have their moment for like
Yeah.
30 years. It was never going to happen. But like now,
Right.
this is the age of the design system.
Because the
Because
AI
if
can create the design system.
well, you could do that too, but uh, well, I mean, some of that is a little aesthetic, right? What font do you want? Do you want this
No, I
one? Do you
know,
want this one?
but I think you could. I
Well,
think
you could have an AI actually have it. Yeah, design systems always fall apart, but now you could have an AI like monitor. But let's just assume whether you create it or not, it doesn't matter. If you have a design system, it'll have like here are the common flows. Here's all the button types. We
yeah.
prefer to have the menus here. These
Yep.
are the logos. This is the font. This
Yep.
is the colors. And
Absolutely.
then when you press
The
go, the
button.
AI can
Grab all that.
grab that from the design system as
Yeah.
its
I
base,
know.
and then it can generate it. So you need the design system. I guess you
Yep.
could say make it look like X or Y, and it could do it. But having that having it spelled out in a design system, then the AI can take it
Yep.
and get it pretty close to to working code. And then you need the experts on the development side to do things that are beyond my knowledge about what the experts would do
Right.
on the development side. Something about databases or
I
like
know. It's
you
beyond my
gotta
knowledge,
gotta
but I believe there would be some
caching
experts that would be
something
good.
or whatever
Yep.
they're doing over there. So yeah, so I guess the answer to your question is I think it's like are visual designers on the development side or then they on the UX side? Or are they on their own
The
side?
visual designers?
Yes.
Well, these days
Interaction designs.
they're on the UX side.
Then the UX is what's going to get eaten. I mean, it's also going to get eaten on the development side, but when you're talking about Figma, I think that's the sort of the next thing to sort of be gobbled is I mean, again, classic example, Figma prototype. Um, uh, I press the button. I say make 10 different Figma prototypes
Right.
that are all like live code or whatever, and boop, there we
Well,
go,
and
right?
and I yes, I agree. I
And so
agree.
a lot of that is going to come at the expense of at the design interaction design folks because all that you call that detail design, right? That's a phrase you use a lot.
Yes. Yes.
And
So
detail is something that AI actually can do pretty well,
right. Right.
especially those little,
But
generating lots of detail.
and to my credit, there are videos out there. There are when were we in
You have the receipts
I do. I have the receipts
as
from
the hot take or
when
as
were
let's
we
say
in Stockholm at the
2016
business business what
business
was
for
it?
buttons 2016
Buttons to business to buttons 2016.
I think ballpark.
So I have the receipt of standing on the stage and saying that detailed design was going to be one of the first things to go. That if you know, if you're a UXer, that's not the part of UX you only want to know how to do, because I still
Yeah, and
think
you were 100% wrong, because in the next decade, detailed design exploded, and that was like the area of biggest job growth.
no,
But you
but
were eventually
no,
potentially
I knew
right.
no, I knew, yeah, I knew it would be
You
after
called the
that.
recession, just not at the right time.
Yeah, but I knew
But,
it was coming.
this is someone who wrote a book on speech interfaces in, like, 2004,
I think it was
or
2000,
isn't what
might
it
have been
was some,
$1998. It
2
was,
decade, like, 15
I
years
did.
before
I'm
anyone
always
actually had a
ahead of
working
my
speech
time.
interface.
My time frames are
You're
I'm
too ahead of
correct.
your time.
My time frame is a little off.
If you'd done
No,
it,
but
like, 5 years.
I did know that that would be that the problem solving and the I mean, because I'm really looking forward to, if you talk about high level UX design, right, which is the fun part, and I'm really looking forward to the part where we say, hey, here's a little bit of information. Come up with 2 or 3 object models, uh, conceptual models, object models
Things that
for
a UX expert traditionally would have to do.
right. But
You
now
go up to
the
a man on the street and say, "Come up with 2 object
now
models." They
AI
just
can
blank
do it,
stare.
and the AI can do it. We've
We've
seen
seen
AI do come
it.
up with object
It
models.
was pretty good.
It was pretty good. It just needed a little bit of tweaking. I would that floored me. I'll tell you. Okay, so anyway, it comes up with object models, and then you say, "Great. Okay, now come up with 2 or 3 different designs based on this object model."
This is step 3. What you are
That
describing,
yeah,
that is step 3. The
that is step 3.
expert is guiding
Guiding
the
it
AI,
to
but because they're an expert, they have an eye to see, "No, these object models that you came up with are
the
bullshit.
right.
Do it
That's the
again,
problem.
do
Do
it
it
this
again. Do
way.
it this way.
This
Now
isn't
take
right.
that object model and give me 3 different design
Variations.
prototypes.
Okay, this one was pretty
That
good,
was
but you
good.
gotta
This
make
one
it
is crap.
smaller."
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So, you
I know.
still need that expert,
Yeah,
but because you need the eye. You have to
I
know
know.
when it's right and when it's not.
I know.
But
So, and
you
then
that is step 3. Now,
yep.
we're gonna have to do a part 2 on step 3, because
Why?
why? Because we literally didn't talk about any of the implications of what the workplace is gonna look like if step 3 is implemented. That's step
Okay.
2.
All
But
right,
I
fine.
did have one. I mean, do you have? I had one more thing that I wanted to talk about.
All right, if you can do it
Um,
quickly. You
okay.
get 1 minute.
No, I'm not more than 1 minute, but I can do it quickly. So I had talked about how AI is very good at consolidating wealth,
Mhm.
consolidating the benefits. Okay, there is a counter, and I don't know which way it's going to go. You know how they have, like, in math, they have, like, those 2 functions where it kind of runs on the line, and then it either goes like
Yeah.
one way or the other,
Yeah.
right? And then it goes like extreme. It's sort of like that, with AI to me, where it's running along, and it's gonna go tip one way or tip the
Okay.
other, and I don't know which way it's gonna tip.
Yeah.
So you could make the argument it's gonna tip one way, and how do you come up with the best AI models? You need $10,000 graphics cards, right?
Yeah.
So only the Metas of the world, the
Yeah.
Nvidias of the world, the Googles
I'm
of the
gonna be
world,
able to
they
do
have
it.
the money. China, like the Chinese government, they have the money to buy all this equipment to make it,
Okay.
right? So the only people who can participate in the AI are these big players.
Yeah.
So that's one argument, to be like, ChatGPT will win, or whatever big company is going to win. They'll have the best model, and it's going to slide off into consolidation, right? And you'll have these sort of big tech entities that own AI,
Okay.
and, like, all the money that would be paid to employees will get funneled into them. They're making these huge $100 billion investments. On the other hand, um, we run a local AI model that's
Yeah.
on my server
Yeah.
that uh, uses Ollama and OpenWebUI to have a ChatGPT like experience, except not in the cloud. It's local. Yeah, we need a graphics card, so I guess you'd need NVIDIA stock or whatever. But the models are getting pretty good, and the smaller models are getting much, much better. You could make an argument that the big models are getting better too, but I feel like the quality of the small like the good enough ish esque aspect of it, like if you need AI to do like doctoral level medical research, okay, maybe you need the big, open AI $10
Right.
million
But if you
of
needed to
graphics
do
card.
an object model for
You
your
do an
pizza
object model.
delivery business.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you just need $1,000,
Yeah.
graphics card, and that's fine. And so it's coming down. And the fact that it's open source is really, really interesting
Mm.
because it could also zoom the other way, which is sort of like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy in the past. I suppose it's like animal husbandry.
Okay, that's a
Maybe.
weird analogy.
What, right? Like now anyone can own a goat,
Mhm.
right? So that
Yeah, I don't know,
changes,
Guthrie. This is interesting. I don't know.
but there'll still be castles. You still need like the castle to
Mm.
protect you from the whatever. And but like if I can raise a goat, you can raise a goat. So everyone just has like a small little thing. And so actually what will happen will be the disintegration of the economy or capitalism or whatever, but it's going to zoom in the opposite direction. Instead of it being consolidated in these huge big players, like,
I thought
you
we weren't
know,
gonna fall into the pitfall of discussing
no, but this
philosophy.
this was the point I wanted to make when I made that exception, where it's like we got to talk about this
Oh,
particular point.
okay.
Yeah, this is just part of the
I
exception.
think
This is an
it's a
exception,
really
right? So maybe
interesting
it zooms
question.
the other way.
I don't know.
Everyone has their own AI agent,
Yeah.
and I don't know what you do with it, right? Like, what happens if you have the capacity to do anyone's job, but everyone else also has the capacity to do like anyone's white collar job? I don't know what that means.
I don't know
Like,
what that
what does
means.
it mean that I could be a senior programmer
Right.
because I can just tell my local
Yep.
open source thing, or I'm a small company, right? You or I mean, we are a small company. We could, instead of needing to pay Microsoft to, I don't know, have Teams. What if
Right.
we asked our local AI to, hey, come up
To
with a
do
chat
it
app for
teams.
us
Yep.
so that we can run it locally and we don't have to pay Microsoft? I, I don't know what that means. Maybe that's an existential threat to like the modern internet corporate walled garden that they've created where everything has to be funneled through them. So I don't know which way it's going to go. Either it's going to zoom one way, and the walled gardens of subscription model that all the big tech businesses are making trillions of dollars on, either becomes now like some Black Mirror episode where like that's life for everything, and they like own society, or it'll zoom the other way and all of their investments like completely fall apart because we don't need them anymore, because I don't need any subscriptions. Why do I need a subscription to any of this? I have an AI that can generate anything I want. If I want to make like a video game, I don't have to even pay the big video game manufacturers. I'll just tell the AI to, you know, make me a video game about this, or whatever it is. I don't know. And then we get, that gets to industry replacement and stuff. But so we could, it's a really interesting
It's very
diversion.
interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. So
Well,
you
I'm
made
glad.
me think
Yeah.
of something brand new.
Yeah. No,
Doesn't
it's really fascinating because AI is like, it's out there, right? The open
Yeah.
models,
Yeah.
they're there. And I don't, it's really hard to kind of put that back in the can. And especially when you have, DeepSeek was the big thing, because DeepSeek made an open model, and
Right.
they just ripped off one of the non-open models. But the big not open models just ripped off the internet. So, you get like,
True.
I don't know. So Any other thoughts? I just had that thought. I wanted to
No,
talk about
I'm glad you talked about that.
profit and which way
It
it's going to go, and
kind of made me go in my brain, so I'm gonna have to think about it.
well, this is good. I think this one went better than number 2, but we're not done with number 3. We'll have to come and do probably a short part 2 just
Okay,
about what is the workplace. And this will we should can we just write this in our notes? So
sure.
I'll do it. So like part 2, what does the workplace, and we'll put in parentheses UX because we're trying to keep all UX focused, look like if we all have step 3
Okay.
available to us, right?
Right.
So like what does it look like if at any point in time I have the capacity of like 10 junior
Yeah.
people in my field at my beck and call
Yeah.
for some AI agent? So sorry I talked a lot today,
No,
but
it was good. I thought it was
yeah,
good.
you had less thoughts than
Sorry.
no, that's okay. You what? No. You're saving all your ammo for step 4.
I don't know. I might
No,
have more.
you have lots to say on step 4. So here. I'm gonna put a note that I'm gonna have Susan run step 4. That'll be
No,
fun.
no, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I don't
That'll be
think
great.
so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Guthrie, if people want to reach us and make comments or ask questions, how do they do that?
You can email info@theteamdodo.com, and let me just make a plug. We may have another series coming soon that we're going to do, and maybe after our AI series. So I'll just tease it like this. This was a suggestion that I got from someone, and it was a good suggestion. I think we should do it. And I talked to you, and you were like, "Let's do it." Um, if there is some sort of like app, some web app that you want us to analyze for sort of a fun project, you should email us at info@theteam.com. If it needs like a login, it's like some sort of B2B sample login, so we don't have to be signing up and paying for stuff.
And the idea
All
is we would do a UX/behavioral design
right.
evaluation
Some things
live.
with some fun twists,
Yeah.
on them. But it would be, originally we were just going to pick our own, we just pick something, but it'd be way more fun if we had someone kind of
Say, do this one.
do this one. So we're on the prowl. I'll probably say that at the end of every episode. So,
Okay.
Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Guthrie. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.